Welcome to Promote Profit Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark. And I know a lot of you reached out, and there's cable coming in right now. A lot of you reached out and you said, why in the world are you having a dietitian on? And here's the reason, guys. Many of us are working from our homes now. And it means when we have something that goes wrong, our refrigerator is right in the next room. And I know a lot of my clients have been complaining about, I'm gaining weight, I'm not getting enough exercise. So that's why I brought Carrie on, because that's something that is sort of an epidemic now. So I'm really excited to have her. Before we get started, I want to tell you, we have a lot of events this month. We have Media Insight Live, and that's on 9/16. You can register for it at mediainsightlive.com. That's insights with an S. We're having Tracy Hazard, Jackie Lapin, and Joey Garrity talking about media changes, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't. On the 18th, we have our Go High Level monthly training. This month, it's Building Communities with Rebecca Bertoldi. And then you can go to ghlmonthly.com. And then she's going to be our trainer next month as well. And it's going to be how to humanize your marketing. For that one, you can go to just our monthly registration, bamagtraining.com. And that's on October 3rd. And lastly, all of you are authors, thebookfest.com. That is running October 25th and 26th. Day 1 is all about readers. Day 2 is all about authors. I might have that flipped around. It's a free event, and you're going to get a lot of information and full transparency. I'm one of the speakers, but I would have promoted it anyway. So today's guest is Carrie Cassell, and she brings Nourish to Flourish message as a sought-after speaker and #1 best-selling author of the Domino diet, How to Heal You from the Inside Out. And by the way, you guys, not a typical diet book. You're not going to get preached at. She has a killer sense of humor, so you're going to laugh your way through this diet book. It's not one of those I can't do it. You can do it. Combining her life coach certification, alternative, non-alternative medicine as a dietitian for 30 years, Carrie's unique formula unlocks patterns of self-sabotage while putting the heal back in health. So she's actually going to be releasing courses, the Domino Diet Formula and Cracking the Craving Code. That is such a great title for a course. So Carrie, take it away.
Thank you. You can hear me? All's good?
Yes.
I'm going to share some slides here in a moment, but, kudos to you, Juliette, because bestseller, that whole business that occurred, I think you had a huge hand in that. So I remember it's 2021 that the book was launched. So this is reflection time, and I've already got the courses launched. So that's probably an update for the bio to be including there. Thank you for joining me. I'm pretty casual. Yes, I have slides, and unfortunately I do have to zip off a little sooner than I would love. So as Juliette pointed out, there'll be a way that you can get a hold of me for questions and that type of thing, but we'll see what we can do. I'm going to try to roll through these quickly so we can get to more questions, maybe regardless at the 45-minute mark, if not sooner. So I'm going to share a screen if I can. Am I a host to be able to do that with the most?
Yes, I believe I gave you.
Okay, so are we seeing a screen? Are we seeing slides? Or are we seeing things we shouldn't see? Like my emails or...
No.
So this is, there's so many different titles in the way of eating and diet, and the greater side of emotional eating I thought was kind of catchy. I've yet changed that in another session called Transforming Emotional Eating. So however you want to look at it, emotional eating has a kind of a negative connotation. And what's so funny to me is we're always thinking, we're always breathing, and we're always having an emotion. So if I'm loving my food and feeling grateful for my food, that's also emotional eating. So you can kind of see maybe where I'm coming from, where I make these pivots in the way we think, is because I toss on the life coach hat. So I like looking at, how as a dietitian and alternative medicine life coach kind of weaves together in the way of food, and walk you through the journey of our crazy view on food and why we're not maybe more grateful for it. We're almost feeling guilty for eating in the first place, which I'd like to transform. So that's part of my why. And part of my why is some of the health journeys not only my clients were experiencing before writing the book, before becoming a life coach, but also my husband. So you'll hear his story and my story, and hopefully, again, time for some Q&A. Julia already talked about who I am, so I'm going to blow past that. I like cats and I like animals overall, so I'll sometimes place these in here also for me to remember what to speak about. But this is Q2, the journey on food and me starting back in the 80s. I'm going to be aging myself in a moment here. I had been reading the Nutritional Almanac book since I was 14. I don't know. Obviously, I was being called to work in wellness because it got my attention like Vogue magazine for somebody else. And I thought it was normal. I guess it's not. I don't think I am anywhere close to being normal, and that's okay. And I'm about 14, so I don't really have a handle on the information, but it was just drawing my attention. And I say that because I begin alternative medicine in the 80s, and that's a time when carbohydrates were like the best. And everybody was talking about carbohydrates, putting fructose in everything. I swear, we were selling in bulk bins fructose to put in your baking. Well, now it's bad, apparently, so I'm not going to argue about what is or what isn't. I'm just taking you through the journey. And then the 90s occur, and it's fat. Fat's the best. Let's get cold press oils and omega-3s. Do you remember this? Am I tooting? Yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden, fats were bad. It became diet, light. And the grocery stores have never looked the same at that point in that era. And so confusing, right? And then came the proteins. In the 2000s, the proteins became the best. Now, I had been reading that Nutritional Almanac book, learning about vitamins. And I knew that inside that those macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, were these vitamins that were helping hair. Of course, I was paying attention to that at that time. They were helping our immune system. And I knew that these were important and was perplexed that we would take out a group, a macronutrient like carbohydrates, and call it bad when there was fiber in there and vitamin C and all these other types of nutrients. And it was concerning. I started to feel like the heel was falling out of the word health, especially since diets and all these different trends were taking people down these roads and paths that were leading to unhealthiness. They would then come to me with hair falling out and telling me that they had colds all the time, but they had lost weight. Like that was the only goal. And again, that was perplexing to me. And I thought there's something missing. I kept feeling like there's something not quite right. And then Q2, this guy. Slides are advancing. You're seeing a guy in a Scooter McGee. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. Making sure. So this, not the best picture of this guy. This happens to be my husband. I don't like to use other clients because it's too vulnerable for many and also confidentiality. But him, I use him all the time. So he's 8 years younger than me, and he was starting to see symptoms of gout and high blood pressure and you name it. And I thought, what in the actual, he's got more disease going on than ever. And I'm a dietitian and I'm not seeing impact with him. And then it's almost as if to a screeching halt, I was started to realize I'm not sure it's making an impact for anybody because I'm telling them what to do. They leave and I'm not necessarily seeing that person again. So I'm assuming that just because you tell somebody to eat a certain way that they're following suit. But I guess, as we know, we're humans and we do sabotage them. There are many reasons for that. And Stephen was no different. He is here in Vegas looking really happy simply because I ordered a scooter so that we could actually enjoy the strip because he couldn't walk. He's plagued with gout. And that, if you don't know, is a very painful disease of the joints where in his case, in his feet, he couldn't walk. Funny, he could nearly run to the blackjack table. Nothing else. Anyway, digress. His diet, many other things were leading to this. And every time he'd be plagued with a symptom, he would for a while. He'd say, what do we got to do to help my disease? And generally at the symptom level, I would speak to him about how to eat and how to walk and all these things. It didn't seem to really last. That, to me, told me there was something missing. And then came my own health journey. I call it Confessions of a Dietitian because behind the scenes, I was also starting to notice I was burning out. I was pretty exhausted. I noticed, I was hitting menopause, to be honest. And so I think hot flashes and just walking to the mailbox was a big effort compared to what I had been doing, which was marathon running. And it was such a change. And I didn't know how to handle being a dietitian who was also struggling. And I just thought I was a fraud. I thought I'm going to give up this career. No way in heck am I going to show up and feel like I'm not being authentic and that I'm not bringing an impact. And a lot of emotional eating is starting to become part of our lives. I'm noticing it with my husband and with myself to a degree. to my level of what that would be. I've always loved fruits and vegetables. I think it'd be a curse to be a dietitian and not. So those were always in the part, but I was noticing I was whining with wine a lot in the hot tub and whining with wine wherever. In other words, I was starting to find other ways of dealing with the emotions, and they were not conducive to health. So something was missing. And then fast forward, I end up finding this life coach hat, which starts to teach me about the mindset and how we had results in our life and how and why the self-sabotage. And we would need hours to unpack a lot of that. But today we're talking about being aware in the first place. So I'm going to play, but I didn't share sound, so I'm going to fast forward actually. I'm going to fast forward to the fact that often what's behind the scenes is our unawareness to fear. In A Course in Miracles, it talks about there are only two primary emotions in our life, love or fear, when it comes down to the grassroots. So that if you are in fear, be it fear of an actual mammoth running from, which is not today, but would have been in our DNA. In other words, we still have in our DNA the same chemistry pouring through in our subconscious mind of fear engaged as though we're running from the mammoth, as though we're fighting for food, acting like it's our last supper, binging on food because we think it's our last supper. And the chemistry isn't any different. And I just want to say our subconscious mind has no filter. It doesn't say, I don't feel like breathing you right now, because that's what's breathing you. It doesn't have this filter that says, I don't think she's that scared. It's just a little bit of fear. It doesn't. It just goes to work and does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is take your hand off that hot stove or veer out of harm's way when you're in traffic. Same be said if you're watching the news and eating. The same chemistry is occurring while you're under fear. But you have to be aware of the fear. You have to be aware of what your subconscious patterns are to be able to repattern them. So the fear in and of itself is creating our own kind of, like I say, like an FM and our AM dial on our radio. So why I'm saying this is, let me take you back. AM, fight, flight. We have a default very habitually to go to fight, flight. And for that, we should be grateful for. But we're really not running from mammoths anymore. We have food in our fridges. We do have, as Juliet pointed out, we can go to the fridge as these entrepreneurs sitting at our desks at any whim and eat. So we shouldn't be fearing the same as our chemistry is acting. And it's simply because we're not aware. We're not aware that we have more control over our own hormones. People will say to me, my hormones are out of balance. They've given up on me, as if they're like outside of us. But we do. We have a conductor in our brain, simply how we breathe, to switch on AM or FM. So AM being fight, flight, and FM being the rest, digest, create zone. And like a radio, you cannot be on AM and FM at the same time. You can only be on one or the other. How you are breathing is how the hormones are reciprocating. So shallow breathing. You could be showering in therapy. You're doing a therapeutic thing, but if you're fighting with your spouse in the shower in your mind, or your teenager or coworker, even though it's not real, your body doesn't know any different, and you're literally producing fight-flight hormones. So you're in the AM, fight-flight. But if you become aware of your breathing and go in calmly with your breathing, you flip over to FM, rest, digest, create. And if you're hearing me really emphasize the word digest, it's right in the title. It's right in the actual formula. To when we eat, we should be in the FM, rest, digest, create, not in fight, flight. So you have to be aware, how am I breathing while I'm eating? And in a sense, this is called intuitive eating. This is being aware of your emotions while you eat. Am I in fight, flight? Am I multitasking on the computer while eating? How are you breathing? Am I running across the kitchen, cleaning counters, eating a forkful at the same time? How are you breathing? If you are not aware of how you're breathing, you will be likely in the default of AM, the fight-flight zone, where cortisol is produced, where we are not superior for digestion. If anybody's ran marathons or does running, for instance, and you're eating and running at the same time, you are not going to digest very well. You're going to be finding yourself a washroom. You're not superior for, you have to be very clued into what you can eat when you're even participating in something like that. Meaning, in fight-flight response, your digestive system is in shutdown mode. because all calories, all energy wants to be for the running, not for digestion at that time. But when you breathe in slowly through the nose and then out through the mouth as though you're blowing through a straw, roughly 3 times, you are conducting your own hormones. You're pushing, pulling, moving over towards FM, rest, digest, create. So can you imagine doing that before eating, where serotonin is there, where the emotions are a little bit more peaceful, and you can actually be hearing your hunger and fullness cues. So I'm a big proponent of pushing or suggesting that we be in FM before eating as almost like the primary. But we've lost sight of these things because we go completely to the symptom. What are your symptoms? Here's your pill. Here's your diet. What are your symptoms? Here's your pill. Here's your diet. I wasn't talking about how you breathe before eating. It wasn't in my curriculum. And so I began to study things like cats again. While they're eating under distress, anybody have an animal that's in distress, and how are they responding to food? They're hacking up and throwing up, and it's not a recipe for eating. So we're no different when our system is in stress. Our system is in distress of any kind, or dis-ease. The dis-ease is leading to disease, long before the disease. Paying attention to our emotions while we eat is part of that. So I feel like what has happened is when we are on our green growing edge, when we are growing, when we are endeavoring to write a book, when we're endeavoring to accomplish a goal or a dream, inevitably we're going to have fear along for the ride. But we've not learned how to deal with that fear. We grab the wrong tools. It's kind of like when I have a piano. So if it's out of tune, I'm going to go get my piano tuner and tune that with the right instrument. And to be in tune with your body and what you need, it's not to go grab food and eat emotionally. We're grabbing the wrong instrument if we're grabbing food for our emotions. So I want us to be more aware of the fact that our fear is here for the ride, to be in the, not the driver's seat, but the passenger seat or the rear, kicking fear to the rear, in other words. And by having that awareness, I'm expressing an emotion here. I have fear about writing the book. I have fear about being seen. I have fear about, I don't even know how to handle my schedule with this and my schedule with that. So we're going to create what we call the 3 Ds while we're endeavoring, which is either we're going to feel distracted. So before I was writing my book, for instance, before writing a page, I would be putting a load of laundry in because, I'm working from home. That's easy peasy. I'll just go put a load of laundry in. But while I'm up, I'm going to go get my lunch ready. Ding, ding, the washer went. I better put the stuff into the dryer because we don't want that being all wrinkled. Ding, ding, the dishwasher went off. Better unload that. You see what I'm saying? Everything would distract me in the way of housekeeping. And I realized with noticing, if I was doing a presentation here today and I started off my presentation with housekeeping notes like, well, before we get rolling, let me tell you about an announcement, as Juliet was doing. But we just stayed on announcements and housekeeping, you would never get to hear the crux of the message. And I realized I was putting my calendar as though the housekeeping duties were the most important and not the actual message. So 80% of my calendar now is filled with my message. 20% is filled with more administrative things. The point being is I needed to be aware that I was in distraction mode. The other one is dissuasion. Who do I think I am to be writing a book in the first place? There's tons of books out there. Dissuasion of our character. Usually under that is the fear of perfectionism, the fear of not doing well, the fear of failure. Just be aware and have thoughts about, well, maybe I'll do a massive imperfect action. I'm going to write a page a day. That began to be an affirmation I would put on and put fear in the rear. And the other one is simply, oh my gosh, I signed up with Juliet. Now I'm going to actually do this thing. Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And it's called danger zone or DEFCON. And you literally will feel the fear in your body and potentially run to the fridge and grab chocolate or wherever, if you have chocolate in your fridge, I suppose, but whatever's in the food or the pantries, the emotional eating that you're expressing with, again, the wrong tool. It also becomes emotional scrolling or emotional spending or emotional drinking, which is what Steve was doing, because we don't know how to handle our emotions. So, obviously I'm talking about emotional eating, but you can hear me subtly talking about more than that. It's mindset. It's being aware of our emotions, how we handling our emotions, which it's to me, how we do one thing is how we do everything, is what my mentor, Mary Morrissey, says. And it's so true. If I am not sure about how to handle my emotions, my energy is going to be low. My joie la vivre in life, my relationships are going to be affected. It affects everything if we're not aware of our emotions. And of course, I'm a dietitian, so I speak about food. At least I'm seeing some nodding heads, so I think it's registering. So how to handle our fear? Not that it's going away. It will be there for the ride. And in a way, I've learned to kind of embrace it a bit more. This is not just coming from me. It's just the knowledge I've gleaned from mentors and so forth. But if you're not experiencing some sort of fear, you're probably in your cocoon. You're probably in a comfort zone, which is great. You can do that now and then. But like the trees are growing and everything else is growing, I think we're meant to. We have a skeletal system that's meant to move. We have a brain that's meant to think. And our emotions are meant to be expressed, not eaten. So you get the message. I've been saying it over and over, but it's clear, I hope, by this point, which is why the book became called The Domino Diet. First of all, I'm a quirky person. I had a dream that actually I could see these dominoes falling. I could see the words on the dominoes, and the title Domino Diet kept coming to me. And I thought, what in the heck? I am not putting the word diet on the cover of my book. It's a 4-letter word, if you know what I mean, not the kind people love. It's a swear word. Until I was brought to the realization and remembered the true meaning of the word diet, which comes from the Greek word dieta, which means a way of life. And I felt like I was being called, just like I did to read the Nutritional Almanac book, to write a book, or at least have a message be about bringing back the true meaning of the word diet and bringing it to be a way of life, understanding emotions, understanding our thinking, how we breathe, and how it all ties together. Hence the book. So these little dominoes became a very effective way of looking at how we think. How we breathe is the next domino. So how you think is how you breathe. How you breathe becomes your hormones, AM, FM, along with a plethora of other hormones, but just we'll say that. We could say cortisol, serotonin. And then how we breathe is how we feel. Like our thinking leads to how we breathe, then our hormones, then we feel. We don't feel first. It has to be thought first. And the feelings are kind of messages from the body saying, hey, you've been thinking fear a lot. You've been thinking positive a lot. It can be both. So waiting for the feelings to say, I feel like having chocolate, means you're kind of partway through the formula, not realizing the grassroots. So if you're running to food, ask yourself, what am I actually fearing? What's really underneath it? What am I really craving? Would be another way. Hint to cracking the craving code, which is a course that I work with as well. And if I had one thing to leave with, at the very least, to help people and help spread the word, that we simply want to pause before we eat so we can get more engaged with our thoughts, our breathing, our thinking, our hormones. It means we have to not be racing around and multitasking. It ideally means we're not eating while we're sitting at our desks. It means less eating while we're watching TV. And it means to take a pause in the first place. And the acronym itself is helping us with that formula. So to pause and breathe before we eat and be aware of our emotions. Am I in stress mode? Am I in fear mode? Am I in joyful mode? Just be aware, not judgment. And then be a unitasker while eating. Just be with the food, enjoying the food. I could go on a spiel about how our ancestors had to pave a path for us to have food in the first place that they rationed, and we can have a 2-for-1 from Safeway without a problem. Sorry, do you have a Safeway in the States? I'm from Canada. From the grocery store. Be just simply with the food. And I have learned that people who are not able to do that as easily are also fearing the guilt of eating. They feel bad for eating. They feel like they shouldn't be. I'm like, but good luck. We have no choice but to eat. So if we could just eat, you're going to enjoy the bites that you're having because you have to eat anyway. So you may as well enjoy it. Unitask. Slow down. Slow to eat, to hear your hunger and fullness cues. This is called intuitive eating, really. People say just stop when you're full or start when you're hungry. Yes, but you have to be aware of your hunger and fullness cues. So this pause acronym helps with that. And to enjoy the food with gratitude. So back in the day, my family grew up with sitting around the table, eating and talking. And there seemed to be, and we started with grace. I mean, that was just kind of how we grew up. It was God bless the food. That sounds familiar. And I believe that this was like an organic way of flipping over to the FM, rest, digest, create, very naturally. We were eating, enjoying, and bringing in gratitude for the food. If that's not rest, digest, create, I don't know what would be. And now you can be more aware and do it in your own way. So this pause acronym, I mean, I have it, I don't even know if you can bring up that QR code right now, but it'll bring you to places where you can download that. But at the end of the day, have a sticky note where you eat. Suggestion. And if it's at your desk, write a sticky note that says, bring the sticky note to the kitchen. I don't know. Something that helps you to remember to eat in one place in the house, or at the very least, if you have no choice, and sometimes I'm there too, be aware of how you're breathing when you're eating. If you have no choice but to drive and eat, be aware of your breathing. When somebody's cutting you off or somebody's driving slow and you've got road rage, don't eat. Not the best time to eat. You may as well be pouring gravy all over the same salad that you just ate, because cortisol is going to be produced and it's a fat storing hormone. That's the science behind that. So I have a lot more to unpack, and usually my sessions I'll work with the emotions themselves. I talk about the emotion spectrum, that if we're in guilt and shame, it's the lowest part of our emotional spectrum in our human world. And yet love is up around 500 hertz. So our emotions can be measured, by the way. Emotion, energy in motion. And so in that measurement, which is not in all science, by the way, but it is in some of our science, our shame and guilt is at the lowest end of the spectrum. So while eating that way, we're in a constrictive pattern, potentially producing more of that cortisol. But when we're in a place of gratitude and acceptance and love, we're at a more expansive place of our emotion spectrum and more likely to digest that better. That's just on digestion. Never mind when you're writing. How about when you're writing and you want to be more creative? You want to be in this place. So how you breathe is going to be part of that. I like going for a quick walk, a 10-minute walk, and I'm going to engage more serotonin, more of the rest, digest, create, where creative writing would be. If you have writer's block, go for a walk. It's definitely going to help you in the hormonal pathway as well. So this is me updating, hopefully, old diet patterns, bringing back the true meaning of the word diet, putting the heel back in health. These are the little taglines that I like to use. I hope you can see the pattern of it's how we think, and the dominoes and why they become the domino diet leads to how you breathe, leads to how your hormones are engaged, then your feelings, then our feelings will help with our actions. Because if we're in constrictive thinking, our actions are going to be different. But when we're in positive thinking, our actions are going to be different in a good way. And then our results become better. That's the formula, going to the root. I work with different people, and this is my daughter. This slide is here as a place for me to remind that, yes, my activity and the walking, as I just mentioned, is part of that. And in my courses, I do talk more about the macronutrients and the micronutrients, which you've heard me spiel on about, and hydration. And I do speak like a dietitian. It's not like I don't. I just must now. It's inevitable for me to talk more about the mindset and how we're breathing and eating. It's going more into beyond the diet way of thinking, I suppose, and the cracking of the craving codes. I just want to zip quickly to my dear husband, who, fast forward, when we began to implement more, how would he love to live his life? And what was he focused on the food so much for? And why was he living in fear? And why was he having all these symptoms? And we learned that he wasn't living completely in what he loved, which was to be a singer in a band. And I got to tell you, when he started talking about being a singer in the band, also working in a corporate world, and he still is in a corporate world, I had fear, because I thought, if you're going to be in a band, you're going to be in environments like Vegas where you're going to drink and go to blackjack tables, and it's the entertainment industry. This is not going to be good for your disease. So I wasn't very supportive. I was in fear mode myself, sabotaging it. He was in his own fear world, sabotaging it. And then the disease became so apparent that I was going to lose him anyway. So I realized, if I don't help him put his attention on what he would love and lose him anyway, we've not really gotten to the grassroots of things. And I was just starting to learn my life coach way of doing things and began to help him move towards what he would love. And then, funny enough, Within 2 weeks' time, he began to be on a stage in a band, living the dream, and starts to come to me and he says, so how can you help me with being like better looking guy on the stage with my black outfit? You can see he's in black outfit here. It looks way better than the scooter guy, I gotta say. And I said, well, buddy, we would be eating better and walking more, just like I've always said. Duh, same thing. And then he said, well, I've also noticed that I have had heartburn and problems with digestion. And how would I work with that so I can sing better from my diaphragm? And I said the same thing. We would eat better and we would walk more. And it dawned on me. All these years, I had been speaking to him at the symptom level of thinking. I hadn't been speaking to him at the dream, incenting him that way. And so when we're looking at disease way of thoughts and fear, we weren't going to what you would love. And making that pivot made a difference. So today, looks better, I think. He's in the band. He's in the corporate world, no longer with gout. Doesn't have the blood pressure issues anymore. His cholesterol's normalized. He shed 40 pounds. His emotional eating under the idea of I can be in gratefulness of my food. I don't have to eat like it's the Last Supper. And I don't have to eat like a binge, basically. And we got a handle on that. And I'm now able to bring impact to my clients. And it's why I bring courses now, so that I can help people with the whole way of life. Get it? Get the message? I think this is a good place to be able to say, I think you got the message, and I can bring it to some questions and honor a good 10 minutes worth before I have to pop off. Sorry, I spoke fast, but hopefully you get the message at the end of the day on that. Again, I do offer courses and cracking the sugar code and the Kick the Sugar series, and you name it, whatever's kind of the new trend I tend to go with. Right now, inflammation's the new buzzword. So you make the pivot, right? Wherever you're at in your authorship, make sure you're listening to what the world is doing, because it's those words that they're listening for, and grab them when you're creating your courses. So let's do anti-inflammatory disease right now. That's the next one.
Carrie, are you going to share the YouTube of your husband singing? He's fantastic.
Oh, no, I don't have that on here actually, but thank you for reminding. So yeah, not only is he living the dream as a singer, he created songs. They're on YouTube, they're on Spotify, the normal platforms. He's got 3 songs. One he wrote about me, it's called The Honing Stone. And there's a lyric in there that says, he doesn't refer to me necessarily, but it is about me, something about being abrasive. So I said, oh, okay. But it's actually a good song. It's me being able to help hone him to what he really is today. That's one story out of many. I mean, I could talk about him again, as I mentioned, and I wish I could talk about others, because it's really been very heartwarming to see the impact that it brings. Finally, after 30 years, did I mention I've been a dietitian for 30 some years, alternative medicine for 10 years, so 41 years in wellness. Wow. There I've aged myself a little.
Anybody have questions? Ooh, such a silent crowd.
Sorry, it was kind of I felt like a fire hose was happening here, but if you get out of all this that you just pause before you eat, mic drop, I've done my job. I can say bye. There.
Okay. All right. If there's no questions, Carrie, thank you so much for being on today. And did we put where we can find you into the chat? If we do,
not in the chat
later.
Yeah.
When we're sticking that cupcake in our mouth and we're like, oh, I have a question for Carrie.
That's a good time to be able to do that. I mean, I don't know. I have so many different QR codes, so probably best for me to put in the chat my contact.
Okay. That sounds good.
I had a phone number.